Hello and welcome to another unboxing video. With me seeing the release of the Airfix Saracen Mk5, I thought we'd take a look at the other Saracen kit that was released this year. This one is in full resin in Hong Kong Creations Workshop in conjunction with Scorpio Miniature Models. They have done one in resin. Let's take a look and see what's actually in the box, shall we? Flip top lid. You get a set of instructions in full colour. A bag containing turret. A bag containing 3D printed parts. A bag of suspension components. And a bag with the exterior components alongside what I call hero parts, the upper and lower hull, side skirts and wheels. Let's take a look at the parts a little bit closely. I thought we'd start off by examining the hero parts in the kit. So we'll start off with the wheels. There are 6 of these, rather nice chunky wheels with excellent bolt detail, printing on the side of the tire walls, excellent tread grip, and typical with resin kits, there's a little bit of the moulding that needs to be trimmed away with a sharp knife and a couple of swipes with a sanding stick, and that will clean that up quite nicely. There are side skirts left and right. Now I've noticed that mine has a piece missing from it. Now it's either going to be in the box loose or in one of the bags. If you have a problem with this and the piece is missing, just contact Mike at Scorpio Miniature Models and he will certainly sort you out with a new part. Onto the lower hull, again beautifully detailed, beautifully rendered as a one-piece moulding with partial interior detail, more of that in a little bit. On the front there are a couple of large moulding lugs which will need to be again removed with a razor saw and a couple of swipes with a sanding stick or file, and that will clean up nicely. The upper hull, again beautifully rendered, beautifully detailed both inside and out. The windows and the turret hole are currently flashed over. That just allows them to mould the piece a lot easier. But again, moulding slugs at the front, razor saw and sanding sticks will clean that up quite nicely. So with that, let's take a look at what's in the bags. And we'll take a look at the 3D printed parts. First up is a little gate with 3 Clansman antenna mounts and 3D printed, very nicely detailed, very nicely done. There's a pair of headlamps in clear resin, again very nicely done. Bit of silver paint on the back. Before you mask and paint these off, those will look very nice. And the third 3D printed components are wing mirrors, 2 different types, and some on-vehicle equipment which looks like a shovel, prize bars and a pickaxe handle, and another part which I can't identify off the top of my head. But that's the 3D printed components. Take a look now at the turret. This is of course a ferret turret. Anyone who's acquainted with the Scorpio Miniature Models ferret upgrade sets will be familiar with this. Beautifully detailed, again nice one-piece casting inside and out. Here's the lower turret ring, a little bit of flash, resin flash there, and the casting lugs, that's the word I was looking for. Again, these can be cut off with a razor saw, a couple of swipes with a sanding stick or a file, and those will clean up nicely. Then we have the top and back hatches, again nicely rendered, detailed inside and out. Then we will have the turret fittings, lifting lugs, hatch bump stops, and I think what's missing, which is in the bag, is actually the turret tie downs, the hatch tie downs for the front of the turret. And also in the bag is a 30 caliber Browning, shoulder mount and the observation sight. And also in this bag I had the rear registration plate. Again, nicely detailed. And that will just snip off of there quite nicely and be ready to be mounted to the kit. Here we have the suspension components. Start off with these. These are the lower hull tie down eyes. There's 10 of these in the kit. And we move over to here. These are the wheel hubs that mount on the front faces of the wheels. There's 6 of them. Then we have this. These are the front steering arms. There's left and right handed, and what looks like an upper suspension unit. Then we have here the drive boxes, left and right, what looks like the horn, some upper suspension wishbones. Then we have the lower shock absorbers. Then we have the wheel carriers, which mount onto the shock wishbone suspensions and secure the wheels into place. And here we have a pair of steering arms, nicely moulded, bit of flash there, so just be careful when you're removing these from the substantial moulding gate. Again, more steering arms, left and right handed. We have here now the drivetrain components, very substantially mounted on lugs. Then we have upper and lower suspension mounts. And here we have the torsion bars. There's 2 lots, left and right handed sides, one with 2 mounts and one with 1 mount on them. Here we have the, let me see what these are. These are the torsion bar supports. And then of course we have the upper and lower, well, these are the lower suspension, wishbone suspensions. And finally we have these, which are the torsion bars, and there's 2 lots, short and long. Okay, let's take a look at some of the external fittings. We'll start off with this. These are the intake covers that mount on the front of the bonnet. 4. They're each identified and numbered, so you can't put them on the wrong order. Well, you can. Then we have the external storage bins, beautifully detailed, beautifully rendered, beautifully moulded. Then we have the cable reel, the front and rear, and the mount bracket that stores the cable reel mounts onto. There's a couple of extra headlights and what looks like a hull fitting, a lower hull fitting there. Moving on to the next part, we have the exhaust shroud cover, the rear reflectors, a smoke discharger, and what looked like a pair of rear steps. Not sure what that is yet. Then we have the driver's hatches. Again, nicely detailed, nicely moulded. Then we have rear components, tow hook, looks like the power outlet, and a couple of brackets. Again, nicely moulded. Then we have the intake vents, left and right, that mount on the front hull of the vehicle, like so. Then we have a pair of outlet pipes, again beautifully moulded, bit of sprue flash there, but again that'll clean up quite nicely with sanding sticks. Then we have 8, we have 7 of these. These are the armoured side covers for the windows on the sides of the hull. Again, detailed inside and out, nicely rendered. And the final part is here, where we get the other smoke discharger, some mounts, and what looks like a headlight fitting, or that's a fuel cap, that's a fuel filler cap. Again, nicely detailed, nicely rendered. And finally we have the last of the external components. We have here the bonnet, the engine bay, again nicely detailed, nicely rendered. Again, casting lug removed with a razor saw, and that will fit happily to the front of the vehicle. Then we have the engine radiator louvers, again nicely detailed, nice undercuts, again casting lug at the bottom to be removed. Then we have the exhaust, again beautifully detailed. Pity you won't see most of that, but nicely done. Then we have the rear hull, again lots of flash, but easily removed. You can actually peel it off, but again detailed inside and out. Again remove with the razor saw the casting lug, and that will fit quite nicely. And finally we have the rear hatches, left and right, both detailed inside and out. Ideal if you want to display the model with an open back. And now we have the instructions printed in colour on A5 sheets of paper. The first page is an introduction to the history of the vehicle and the options that are available. Pages 1 and 2 are a layout of all the component parts supplied in the kit. Page 4 is the assembly of the suspension. It's convoluted and complex, but persevere, it builds up nicely. Page 5 is fitting the drive shafts and detailing the upper and lower, detailing the upper parts of the hull. Page 6 is continuing on with the upper hull, giving you a layout of where the component parts actually go on the vehicle. Page 7 is again some extended diagrams of where component pieces fit and the assembly of the turret. And the last page is some photographs of a vehicle to give you an idea of what the vehicle looked like when it was in service. Well, there you have it, the Hong Kong Creations Workshop in conjunction with Scorpion Miniature Models, the Saracen Mk5 APC. Now, I did mention an interior. Now, there is an option for you to buy a separate interior set. I won't be reviewing this, but it gives you an option to add a full interior set to your Mk5 kit. Again, everything cast in resin, beautifully moulded, no problems at all. Gives you seats, radios and all the fittings ready to make the interior of your vehicle. One other option that you have is that you can also buy the reverse flow cooling system to convert your Mk5 to a Mk6. Again, beautifully cast in resin, and it makes an interesting changing look to your Saracen. Why not buy both and have both kits in your stash? I know that resin kits aren't for everyone, but with a little bit of patience and a bit of reward, they do build up to very decent kits. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the viewers and subscribers who have left comments and thumbs ups. They are very much appreciated. I do read all the comments. I do eventually respond to all the comments because of my work schedule. Sometimes it takes a couple of days for me to get back to you, but I do respond to all of them, and I'd like to thank you all very much. Bye for now.